Hello and welcome to the Week 1 preview for Season 2 of Major League Balatro. I'm so excited that the season is finally here. We have a full slate of games next week, and as a reminder, I will be commentating all of them. So in this video today, we're going to go over the divisions once more, a little bit of a recap of how everything is going to play out this season. We'll go over the schedule for Week 1, and then I'll do a small preview for each and every game. And to wrap things up in this video, I thought maybe I would showcase my fantasy lineup and remind you guys that we have a fantasy competition going on for Major League Balatro Season 2. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So as you can see here, we have our returning divisions from Season 1 renamed to the Onyx Division and the Bloodstone Division. So first going over my division, returning Roffle, Haelian, Balatro, Neato, myself, Zaino TV, and Gothic Lord UK. And we have made 2 additions to the Onyx Division, HC Justin and Rarran. We are very excited to have some new players for Major League Balatro Season 2. I'm excited to see how they fare in what I thought was a very tough group of players, and it's going to be a fantastic regular season playing against all these competitors. And we have the Bloodstone Division. Dr. Spectre, Edzy, Nandre, Skoottie, MALF, Seadubbs, all returning from last season. And we have added Fir and Bean, 2 incredible players in their own right. Once again, strengthening what was already, again, a very tough division. I mean, Major League Balatro Season 1, as you all know, was extremely close in almost every regard. And I think we're in for more of the same in Season 2, just with more players. And the format for the regular season, every single match this time is going to be 3 games. It's not best of 3, it is going to be 3 games, which means there's 4 points up for grabs every single match, a single point for each game win, and a point for winning the match. So if you win 3-0 or 2-1, you will get that extra bonus points. There'll be 7 weeks of regular season competition, as you are going to play every single member of your division a single time. Top 4 from each division will make the playoffs, and then we have an entire playoff week this time around. Once again, we'll be commentating all those matches. So now let's get into the schedule for Week 1 of Major League Balatro Season 2. To kick things off for Season 2, we have Gothic Lord UK versus Neato Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Really looking forward to that one. Then we have myself versus HC Justin on Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. This will be the only game I don't commentate. We'll see if some other member of Major League Balatro will go ahead and cast this game for you all, but I can't cast myself playing. Roffle versus Rarran. The rivalry will be played Week 1 on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We got Nandre versus Seadubbs. The only match on Wednesday will be at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Edzy versus Fir Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and then Haelian versus Balatro will cap off your Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Friday, we have a double header. We have Skoottie versus MALF at 3 p.m. Eastern, and then Dr. Spectre versus Bean following that match at 5 p.m. Eastern. And just a note, every single week I will be commentating at least 2 games, and those will always be the Tuesday game at 5 p.m. Eastern and Friday game at 3 p.m. Eastern. Those are 2 featured time slots this year, and you can expect casting every single week for those. But I will try and cast more, and just like I said, in Week 1, every single one of these games will be casted on my Twitch and YouTube channel, and I will upload slightly edited versions of that casting to the Major League Balatro YouTube channel. So really excited to be doing that. So now let's jump in. Let's give you a little bit of a preview for each one of these matches. So let's start things off with Gothic Lord UK versus Neato. I think this is going to be a pretty intriguing game, and I want to go over where I think the game will be played, how it will play out, especially since we now have this fantasy competition. I think it will affect what players you select for your lineup. And for those who are just interested to know more about Major League Balatro and see this kind of esport expand. So Gothic Lord UK really made his money playing purple stake. It was interesting. It was a little bit of a diversion from that gold stake. Don't have to deal with the perishable and rental tags, but still playing on a high difficulty. And Neato played really well on these higher non-gold stake games last season. But I do think that's where we're going to return when it's Gothic Lord UK's opportunity to choose a stake. Neato probably keep it around white to black stake. But all in all, I'm not expecting any gold stake matchups between these two, but I do think we're also going to stay away from the white stake, so that may affect how high score either one of them can get. In terms of where I see this game going, I'm not sure. I think Neato and Gothic Lord are very evenly skilled. As we saw towards the end of the season, Neato was this close to knocking Roffle off the top spot in the division in the final game of the season. Really came into her own towards the end of the season and was pretty much right on par with everybody else when it comes to the gameplay. And Gothic Lord came out hot, and then I feel like slowed down, then warmed up again towards the end of the season. Both these players, fantastic competitors. But all in all, I think it's going to be a very close match. I think the most intriguing part of this match will be the fact that it's played on those more middling stakes, which I find to be some of the most interesting Balatro for multiplayer. Next, we have my game against HC Justin, and I think this is probably one of the toughest games to preview. A, because it's always hard to preview a game in which you are playing, and B, HC Justin is not only a newcomer to the league, he's also a newcomer to multiplayer Balatro. I'll be practicing with Justin, giving them some pointers and trying to help them out a bit, but Justin is a fantastic Balatro player. I think if anyone had any questions, it was made very clear during Twitch Rivals, but I already knew that Justin, pretty much any game they pick up, they're fantastic at, and Balatro was no exception when they played it when it came out, played it a ton, and then again during Twitch Rivals. I personally, I'll just give away my strategy. I think I keep it on white stake. I want to play a very much min-max heavy type of game against Justin because I think with having more experience with multiplayer Balatro, I will have an edge there. When it comes to Justin's turn, we have no idea. I think Justin could take it to a higher stake. I think Justin could take it to maybe some interesting decks to try and throw some differentiation into the game. And generally speaking, I think Justin's going to be a really tough competitor in these games. I'm coming in confident, which is always scary, but every time I've watched Justin play Balatro, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, Justin is really, really good at this game. And I think even with just a weekend of practice, getting settled in the whole format of multiplayer Balatro, Justin's going to pick it up just like that. And, I would not be surprised if Justin takes a game or two off of me. And yeah, again, a little bit hard to preview this one because there's not much to say with a new competitor, and then there's not much to say when I'm talking about myself. All in all, I think you could probably expect low stakes games, but I think the decks will be where it gets very interesting between Justin and I, and we'll see how the gameplay shakes out. Next, we have arguably the game of the week, and there's a reason it is our first featured game of the season at Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. We got Roffle versus Rarran. These two are rivals all the way back from their Hearthstone days. Very good friends, very good buddies. There's no bad blood there, but these two have played countless games of multiplayer Balatro against each other over the past 6 months. Rarran really got into multiplayer Balatro after watching a little bit of Major League, so they've been practicing since like the middle of last season. Rarran is right up there as an experienced multiplayer Balatro player, and is just very good at any roguelike, any card game that they pick up, and has taken plenty of wins off of Roffle. Meanwhile, Roffle is the champion of Season 1. I mean, coming in as the undisputed best player in this league because they won the championship. So a lot of people are going to be coming in expecting a Roffle win, but I think if there is anyone to take a win off of Roffle in week 1, it's got to be Rarran, with how much these two have played against each other, how well they know each other's games. When it comes to the stake selection and deck selection, I think Roffle 100% takes Rarran to gold stake, no question about it, and I do think Rarran has a slightly weaker game when it's on the higher stakes, just from a little bit less practice in the single player version. And as I always say, multiplayer, the higher stakes you play, the more like single player the game ends up coming out, because you have to focus on beating those small and big blinds. You have to focus on the economy and some things just a little bit closer to the single player experience. And I think Roffle will have the edge there. I think Rarran will keep it on white stake, and in those games, I bet Roffle takes it to Ghost deck, his favorite, which is always really fun, having the spectral cards in the shop that are extremely powerful. So This is my game of the week. I'm so excited to watch to see how it plays out. But I think the deck and stake selection is actually one of the most straightforward out of all the games this week, as I think Roffle just immediately goes to gold stake. I think Rarran immediately goes to white stake, and I think we'll be playing on stuff like the ghost deck and blue and red deck when it's Rarran's choice of deck. Now we have Nandre versus Seadubbs, and I think this is one of the most intriguing games in the Bloodstone division of the week, and the first one of the week. So first of all, we have to talk about it. Nandre, the Plasma King. We know what Nandre likes to do. He does not care if it's gold stake. He does not care if it's white stake. He wants to play on the Plasma deck, because the Plasma deck, not only in multiplayer, but in single player as well, plays completely different to the rest of Balatro, where you add up the chips, you add up the mult, you divide it by 2, and you square it. So the way your score is calculated is so much different. In the early game, it's not really about the X mult, it's about getting your chips high enough, because you're not going to get enough X mult to surpass what the chips can do, and then you have to make this transition. And it's something Nandre is just extremely good at and extremely comfortable playing, and can also play at a very fast speed. As a note, one of the changes for Season 2 is we have implemented the timer. You don't lose a life if the timer goes to 0 the first time, but you will lose a life if the timer goes to 0 a second time. Also, all calculators are banned, whether that be a calculator on the side or a calculator in the game, which can be very helpful for Plasma deck. So I think Nandre having a feel of Plasma is going to be a huge important note here. Now, Seadubbs. Seadubbs all last season focused on gold stake, and Seadubbs is a good gold stake player. But, coming away from last season, finishing in last place, I know Seadubbs isn't happy with his performance and knows he can do better. And one thing he has been doing a ton of in between is speedrunning Nan-Amph, which is obviously done on white stake. I think Seadubbs may switch his approach this season. I don't know for sure. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. I could see Seadubbs playing more white stake now that he's just been playing that so much the past few months when it comes to Major League Balatro Season 2. But this would be, I think, the biggest exception to the rule, where if you're playing Plasma deck against Nandre, maybe you do want to keep it on gold stake, where it is hectic. It is very difficult. And if you think you are a good single-player player, which I know Seadubbs knows he is, maybe you take it to gold stake. And then when it's Seadubbs' turn, I think there's no doubt that Seadubbs is just going to choose a deck to get it off of Plasma and try red, blue, ghost. I don't know. Just pick anything else, but we will see. I think, again, this is another very intriguing matchup, and really going to set the tone is the Bloodstone division was so tight last year that every single game absolutely mattered. I mean, in both divisions, every game mattered. And this first game between Nandre and Seadubbs, going to be intriguing. We're going to see if Seadubbs can get their first match win in Major League Balatro. Next, we have Fir versus Edzy, and what a game for Fir as their first game in Major League Balatro, taking on the Bloodstone champion and the runner-up to Roffle in Major League Balatro Season 1, Edzy. This is no easy task. I think Edzy is probably the most difficult player to play as a new player to Major League Balatro. So the random generator for the schedule gave Fir no solace, gave him no time off, no time to ease into it. They will be taking on Edzy week 1. And so let's speak to that. Edzy plays gold stake. We know when it's Edzy's turn to choose a portion of this game, when they get to choose first, they are choosing gold stake every single time. Now, I think for Fir that is not ideal. However, I will say Fir is one of the best gold stake single players in this league. They are very good at speedrunning gold stakes. They have a lot of experience. They have a good feel of gold stakes. But Edzy is the min-max king of multiplayer gold stakes, so it's really hard to take games off of them when you play on that high difficulty in multiplayer. And Fir, I've practiced with Fir on a stream. They picked up multiplayer ridiculously quick. I think by the end of this season, Fir is going to be a dark horse for the championship. They are my dark horse candidate to win it all as a analyst and not a player, as obviously I'm rooting for myself as a player. But I really think Fir is going to take this league by storm. They are extremely good at every game they play and they pick up. I do think this matchup may be a little bit tough, but I would not be surprised to see Fir show up and just immediately blow people out of the water, and especially when it's Fir's opportunity to choose an element. I think Fir will take it to White Stake, and I do think Edzy, while still very good at White Stake, we saw it, can struggle a little bit making those super sharp min-max decisions that you can get away with on such a low difficulty. And I think Fir was already doing that in our practice games together. So I think this is going to be a really, really fun game. I'm very intrigued to see if Fir can come out, and we're going to call it an upset only because Edzy finished so high last season. But all in all, I think by the end of the season, these two will be very evenly matched. And I think in this game, it's very possible that Fir still comes away with the victory. But for those fantasy players, I do think it's important to note, Edzy very good at winning games, but because it's on gold stake, not super high scoring. So you have to remember all the elements of the fantasy scoring. And that's just a little bit of a tidbit for the end of that preview. So let's move on to the next one. Now on to one of the games I'm personally most looking forward to from a pure entertainment standpoint, and that is Balatro Bear versus Haelian in the Onyx division. Both these players tend to play on lower difficulty, which means we get to see those extremely high scores, and I think the approach is separate for these two. I think Haelian really figured out and leaned into the re-triggering X-Molt last season, and Balatro Bear was one of the consistent players going for the kind of that high card Baron Mine build. Not that Balatro Bear can't do the idle build, but we saw that Bear would lean into the chariots, giving them some extra points, and it led to some fantastic, entertaining matchups. And I think both of them are just really, really good Balatro players. They're some of my favorite competitors to watch in the Onyx division, so to have them line up in week one is a little bit of a treat. When it comes to what is going to be selected, I'll be honest, I really don't know. I think we're going to be seeing White Stake games. I think Haelian may lean Abandoned deck, which Haelian just, really learned to embrace that pre-deck manipulation that Abandoned deck gives you. Lean into the low cards, try and find a hack, but also knows that they can create those face cards in the Abandoned deck. And then for Balatro Bear, I think, if you are a Baron Mine player, you tend to like Ghost deck because Ghost deck can be a little bit easier to get the Baron Mine build going because you can find red seals in the shop. You can find those cryptids that can really help a Baron Mine build. So maybe Ghost deck for Balatro Bear. But all in all, I just know that we are probably going to see some really high-scoring games here. I don't know how to call it. Between these two, I think they're very, very evenly matched, very talented. Both of them deserve to be in the playoffs last year, and I was able to just barely edge them out and make it into the play-in. But I would imagine that both of these players have an opportunity to not only make the playoffs, but win the division in the Onyx side of things. So, very skilled Balatro, low stakes, high scores. This is going to be a high octane matchup between Bear and Haelian, and I would not miss it if I were you. In our penultimate game of the week, we got Skoottie versus MALF for the second feature time slot. Again, I'm going to cast every game, so the feature time slot's not as big of a deal in week one, but they will be playing at that 3 p.m. Eastern game on Friday. Skoottie versus MALF last season, I actually went into that game saying I didn't think it mattered as the commissioner, and quickly realized that if MALF 2-0'd, it would actually allow Nandre into the playoffs, and that was my mistake, and I do want to apologize to the audience for that, and maybe even Skoottie, who may have been listening to that and not realize how important the game was against MALF. But with all that said, this was the last game that both these two competitors played last season, and it's going to be the first game they play this season. It was really interesting to watch Skoottie and MALF battle it out on high stakes Balatro. MALF loves gold stake. He is going to always consistently go for that gold stake. Skoottie, really, I think you saw them be able to play sound, really good fundamental Balatro, very similar to Edzy, in my opinion, in terms of Skoottie's playstyle, where it's a little bit closer to single player, very min-max heavy, and just you're being able to attribute that playstyle to any stake throughout the season. But they fell just short against MALF at the end of last season. I do think Skoottie will take it to a lower stake when it is their choice to choose an aspect of the game. And I think when it's MALF's turn to choose first, they will always go gold stake. So that may be a little bit of a determining factor in how this game is played out. But all in all, I'm just really looking forward to this matchup, the rematch of a game that had so many playoff implications last season, being the first one of this season. Will Skoottie get their revenge and get the victory over MALF, or will MALF continue to dominate, quote unquote, over Skoottie, since they did 2-0 Skoottie last season? Lastly, we have Dr. Spectred versus Bean, and I know I've said it a lot, but this is another incredible matchup. For those who didn't follow our little tournament summer series, over the summer we had a few little tournaments just to continue playing some multiplayer Balatro in the off-season, and the last tournament we had, Dr. Spectred and Bean played in the finals, and it was a close game with Bean just edging out Dr. Spectred. Bean, while a newcomer to Major League Balatro, is by far the most experienced multiplayer gamer in this whole league, let alone a new player. Bean made a name for themselves in the community as a multiplayer creator and is very good at multiplayer. But Dr. Spectred, many people would call them the GOAT of Balatro in general. Made it to the playoffs, lost to the eventual champion Roffle in the semifinals. So Dr. Spectred, extremely good in that regard. This is going to be an analytical matchup. Both of these players play a little bit more slower paced. They min-max like crazy, and I could not call this if my life depended on it. It is going to be an extremely close game. I do think Dr. Spectred takes Bean to higher stakes, without a doubt, in my opinion, to be honest. I think the high stakes game, again, I've said it probably already a couple times in this preview video, lends itself a little bit closer to single-player Balatro. And we know how good Dr. Spectred is at single-player Balatro, and we also know that Bean is mainly a multiplayer player. Of course, Bean now has C++ after a marathon stream. Obviously can win on Gold Stake, but, taking on Dr. Spectred in a min-max battle on Gold Stake is a whole different beast. And for Bean, I think knowing that, they're just going to go the opposite end of the spectrum and take Dr. Spectred to White Stake, where Bean just has so much more multiplayer experience than Doc would have. All in all, this is a great way to spend your Friday night. If you do not have plans, I highly, 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 highly suggest stay in, order some pizza, and watch this game, because you are going to watch some of the best multiplayer Balatro played on the planet between these two. The finals for the tournament, while it was really a laid-back environment and for fun, was still extremely entertaining. And now there's a lot on the line with this being the first game of the regular season for both these competitors. I cannot wait to cast this game after Skoottie and MALF. It is going to be one for the ages, so do not miss out on Dr. Spectred versus Bean. And now a quick little look at what my lineup is going to look like for week one in the fantasy game. So for those who don't know, I priced the players based off of their placement last season, with all the new players being $3. So I do think Roffle is a great pick. I think Roffle consistently wins, consistently scores very high scores, and in general is probably worth the $6, but I'm not going to be going with them this week. I think they're a good pick. I think Doc is a great pick. I'm going with myself. I think it just makes sense if you're competing to, believe in yourself, pick your name. Next, I'm going Nandre. I think I'm going Nandre because we know Nandre loves Plasma Deck, which leads to even more points, which means you can get a few more fantasy points for that higher score. And I also think that Nandre and Seadubbs evenly matched, but I think there's a good chance Nandre can come away with multiple game wins in that match victory to score me even more points. And generally speaking, I think Nandre, when they do win, they tend to snowball, where Nandre can take your early life and then just take the next 4, which means there would be a lot of lives remaining. And just for a quick reminder, the way that you score points in Fantasy Balatro, you get 10 points for a match win, 10 points for a game win, 5 points per life remaining in that game for a player. So if Nandre wins with 3 lives, again, extra 15 points. And then you score 1 point per E in each game's high score, so those extra zeros. Next, I'm going with Rarran at $3. So Nandre is a little expensive at $5. I'm a little expensive at $5. I believe in myself. I believe that Nandre is going to be worth it on that Plasma Deck. I think Rarran is an absolute steal with their multiplayer experience at $3. And while I do think very evenly matched with Roffle, I believe enough in Rarran to get a couple of victories. I do think You could go with Neato instead of Rarran here as another, $3 player who I think would be very, very much worth the money at that price point. But I'll stick with my gut this week and go with Rarran. And then Bean. I tend to lean that Doc may win this match, but at $3, because I'm spending so much money with myself in Nandre, I have to have another $3 player. And I just think that Bean, due to the multiplayer experience and the fact that I think Bean keeps it on white stake, which again leads to higher scores, I kind of want to go on that side of things. It's tough because I do, I'm making a last moment pivot live on the preview video. I'm going to remove Bean. I'm going to go with Neato. I really believe in Neato to come out the gate hot this season, and I do think that Dr. Spectre, I just, I lean that way in that matchup, so maybe I should go with my gut here and go with Neato as a $3 player that I think is very much going to be worth the points this week against Gothic. So, all in all, we'll see how this lineup fares. You can sign up. I will put the sign up link down below. The league is currently capped at 200 players, but if we get to that cap, we will up our package. So just send me Discord messages that, hey, I can't get in the league, it's capped, so I can make sure I get in contact with Fantasizer, our fantasy partner, and change that. But the sign up link is down below. That's a wrap on the preview video. Again, I'll be casting every single game. I'll try and get someone to cast my matchup against HC Justin. Really looking forward to launching Major League Balatro Season 2. The website is still being worked on. We're really hoping to launch it prior to Week 1. The website, again, will have the full schedule. It will have standings. It will have all the info you want in terms of the rules, how things work, some resource pages, and it'll capture everything you want. We're also working on a new stream overlay that may be done in time for Week 1, but probably not. A lot of hard work is going into that by Vapor Gabe, the editor who created that incredible Major League Balatro trailer that you all loved. And Andy is working on the website. You may know Andy from Minor League Balatro, just being in the multiplayer community in general, doing incredible things for everybody, constantly working his butt off on the technical side, and designing this website for us. So thank you to Gabe and Andy, and I'll keep you all updated on the information. If those things aren't live in time, make sure to join my Discord. I'll have that link down below, because in my Discord we have a whole subset of channels that you can just subscribe to those and get updates for Major League Balatro. Follow us on Blue Sky. If you only have X, you can follow us on X. I reluctantly finally made that, but thank you so much for watching this preview video. We'll see you next week. There is going to be a game on Sunday for Week 2, which means you have to get your fantasy lineups in quickly. Also means I will be doing my recap video ASAP on Friday, so that can be out. You can all make your fantasy lineups in time for the game next Sunday for Week 2. Just a little heads up, but all in all, thank you. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to see you in chat. Can't wait to see you all participate in this fun little league, and see you next time.